Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Going to the state visit, is the question of South Korea contributing to Ukrainian ammunition supplies going to be part of the something they'll discuss, whether that's via the U.S. or directly to Ukraine? Thank you.
Well, I will disappoint you by saying that I'm not going to get into the private conversations that they will have about Ukraine. Obviously, Ukraine is going to be an important topic of conversation. The president will thank President Yoon for the $230 million in non-lethal assistance they have given, the support on sanctions and export controls, and then they will have a chance to talk about the military situation on the ground there. But I'm not going to go further or get ahead of the president in terms of that conversation that will take place when President Yoon and he meet here at the White House on Wednesday. Yeah, I'll take and then I'll call it a day. So.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate congratulate you on the 70th anniversary of the U.S. and South Korea alliance. And the South Korean people are excited about what gift President Yoon will bring from this summit. So what, would be the surprising agreement between President Yoon and President Biden? What kind of?
If I told you about the surprising agreement, then it wouldn't be a surprise anymore. So, no, I don't. Look, actually, I don't. We're not going to spring something on the world or on the American people or on the Korean people. I think the Korean and the American people are expecting to see a summit in which there are tangible deliverables in the security space, and we will have deliverables related to extended deterrence. In the economic space, and there will be announcements of significant investments in the people-to-people space, and you will see announcements in that regard as well. And then they expect the two presidents to cover issues related to the big topics of the day, from the war in Ukraine to the climate crisis. And so I think this summit is going to meet the very high expectations that both publics have from it, and they're right to have high expectations because we are reaching a new level in strength of the US-ROK alliance. I think that will be on full display when President Yoon is here on Wednesday, and we are very much looking forward to laying out the full suite of achievements and outcomes from this summit on Wednesday. And I will not further steal the thunder from the president, either this president or the ROK president, before doing that on Wednesday.
Russia mentioned the possibility of sending more than 10,000 North Korean troops to the Donbass. How can you say about this? North Korea's troops, special forces to Donbass, Ukraine. So how are you going to say about this?
I mean, our position is that there should not be Russian forces on sovereign Ukrainian territory, and there shouldn't be forces of any other hostile country on sovereign Ukrainian territory either, and that position is clear and unequivocal, shared between the US, the ROK, and every country that has voted to condemn this brutal, illegal war of aggression being perpetrated by Russia against Ukraine. Thank you, guys.
The documents breach go undetected for so long?
I think the pool has to gather. Oh, it's open press. Okay, all right. Well, I guess you guys can go gather if you choose to do.
Real quick, the president's been under some calls to now sit down with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy now that he has released the outlines of his plan on the debt limit. Why is now the time for the president to actually speak to the speaker and begin substantive negotiations?
So here's the thing, Zeke.
Oh, okay.
Look, we've been very clear. We're not going to negotiate over avoiding default. We've been very clear about that. The administration is going to have a conversation with leaders over the budget, over the spending cuts. We've been very clear about that, and we have said that from the beginning of this process. That look, we'll have that conversation. But when it comes to default, when it comes to their constitutional duty, that is something that they can do today. they can actually deal with something that would be devastating if they didn't take action, right? Now, when it comes to what we have seen them put forward, 22% cut on education, on veterans, on Meals on Wheels, on food safety, on law enforcement, all of those things are devastating to workers, seniors, to our children, to working families, and clearly they showed us what their value were. But what they have done is they have put those two things together, the debt ceiling and spending cuts, and we have always been very clear, Zeke. We have been very, very clear. We are not going to negotiate when it comes to the full faith and credit of this nation, and they are holding that hostage currently. They're holding the economy hostage.
Not a joke.
And so, look, they have to, we're not negotiating over that, and they have to avoid default. It's very clear. It's very clear. They need to make sure that we're not put in a situation where our economy could be put at risk. And again, been very clear about that.
How ironic.
I know we have to, I think we have to. Yeah, you have to leave now if you want to cover, and I'll go for another. I think once he starts speaking, we have to end. So I'll go for a couple more minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Queen. We saw the Michael decision, and so I wanted to, we saw the statement from the president, of course, over the weekend as well. Just going forward, as that case makes its way through the courts, what more can we expect to see from the White House and from the president, of course, the VP?
So look, so the one thing that really want to make sure that that the American people understand that Mifa Prestone is very much remains available while we continue the fight in courts, and that's what we're committed to do. We've said this over and over again. This administration, the Biden-Harris administration, is going to continue to fight for women's rights. We're going to continue to fight for the FDA to have the right to make these medical decisions. To make these evidence-based decisions. And so that's what we saw. That's what the judgment really preventing the lower court decision from going into effect, which is incredibly important. But we are going to continue to fight, and we're going to continue to call on Congress to codify Roe. And that is something that you heard, that you saw in the president's statement, something that you've heard from the president many times. Again, the fight continues. We're going to continue to fight for millions of women who are across the country, and that will not stop.
Look at this.
Specific question on that. A lot of retail pharmacies, the pharmacy chains around the country are going through this certification process to keep the pill available, or even in some situations make the pill available for the first time. Can you give us an update on where things stand? Is the White House working with HHS, because that regulatory change was proposed in January? Is there any update on that? Because
I don't have an update. That is something that HHS can speak to much more directly. What I can say from here is that we believe that we will prevail in the courts. We believe that the law is on our side, and we're going to continue to fight for millions of women across the country. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Karine. I want to follow up on what Zeke asked there. Senator Klobuchar on CNN yesterday said that President Biden should sit down and negotiate with the Speaker on the budget, but also made clear that the spending cuts and should not be tied to the debt ceiling. And so would President Biden sit down with McCarthy to debate, to negotiate their different budget proposals, or what is the position?
Okay. To be very clear here, the House Republicans' position is unless the President and the Senate agree to their entire agenda, that they're going to default and crash the economy. And that is dangerous. That is something that we're going to continue to call out, and it is unreasonable to do.
Oh boy.
We have been very clear. There will not be any negotiation around the debt ceiling. Right? This is something that is their constitutional duty to do. They've done it 3 times. You've heard me say it over and over again. They did it 3 times in the last administration, and they should do it now. And look, every Republican that votes for this bill that Speaker McCarthy and MAGA Republicans have put forth, they're voting for cutting costs on veterans. They're voting for cutting costs on education. I just laid out at the top of the briefing what that would mean. 60,000. I mentioned 60,000 teachers. I mentioned how many kids it would affect. And so that's what they would be voting for, against those things that American families need. And we're talking about programs that they need to meet ends meet. And so we've been very, very clear. It is unreasonable to put forth what they did last week. It is cruel. That piece of legislation is cruel. And so they need to really make sure that that we don't go into default, and that's what they're asking to do. They're asking to hold our economy hostage and go into default, and that's something that we're going to continue to call out.
Last week, you didn't seem to rule out the possibility, though, of President Biden sitting down with McCarthy at some point. Is that something you're open to?
So look, again, House Republicans must avoid default. Been very clear, and that is within their power to do at any moment.
That's amazing.
That is within their power to do at any moment. And so that's where we're expecting them to see. I think.